Okay, now it's recording, Bill.
Excellent.
Hello.
Okay, I'm Bill.
Right. I think I like this method of doing the recording through this Google Hangouts live, but the connection on my end is a little spotty today. So hopefully it won't interfere too much.
Right. Well, I'm Bill.
And I'm Peter.
Peter, that name is way too long. I'm going to have to call you something shorter. How about Pete?
I like that. I like that. Now we got the origin of my nickname.
Yep.
And let's talk about Solo, a Star Wars story. Not
Yes, sir.
Solo, not Solo's but Solo, subtitle, a Star Wars story.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir. That's a film that came out, and we've both seen it. I saw it 10 days ago. Full disclosure is when I saw it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw it, I think 9 days ago then. Right? Because I think I
that
saw it
seems
one
right.
day after you.
That seems right.
Yeah. Directed by the film 2018, came out on May 25th. Directed by Ron Howard.
Mm-hmm.
Written by Jonathan Kasdan and Lawrence Kasdan.
Yeah.
Starring Alden Ehrenreich, Woody Harrelson, Emilia Clarke, Donald Glover, Thandie Newton, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Joonis. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong. Joonis Suotamo, and Paul Bettany.
Yes.
What were the guys' names? So this movie, Ron Howard is getting the director's credit, but he took it over after the two guys that were, I think, most known for the Lego movie, right?
Yeah, they did the Lego movie, which I saw and quite enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
And they did 21 Jump Street, which I didn't see, but I would really like to. I hear it's very funny.
Yeah.
Channing Tatum and the
Jonas
guy Jonah.
Guy.
I hear it's a very funny cop comedy, and I would like to see it.
Yeah, I listened to. I think they were talking about it on Slate, and it sounded pretty good. I think I want to check it out after I heard them talk about it too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so supposedly the movie, like, they were set to direct the whole thing, and then, if I remember the headlines correctly, like, the actors, as they were filming it, sort of started to text Kathleen Kennedy and say, "We think this film's going off the rails. You should save it."
Yeah.
Right? Is that what you heard also?
So I haven't actually heard that it originated with the actors texting her, but I definitely heard that they were doing too many takes of scenes, which was very expensive, that Lawrence Kasdan really objected to the way that they were directing his script. And that, coupled with the fact that, at the end of the day, the fact that they were really slow about making the movie made it really expensive, meant that they got canned and replaced by Ron Howard, who's kind of a journeyman, seasoned Hollywood director who's made a lot of movies, and wouldn't have any difficulty taking over something sort of midstream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's kind of the gist of what I got too. And for people who don't know, Lawrence Kasdan and Jake Kasdan wrote the screenplay for this, and Lawrence Kasdan, famous, I think, for a bunch of movies, but pertinent to Star Wars, he was the screenwriter for Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yes, he was. And he collaborated with J.J. Abrams on the script of Force Awakens. And I think he even kind of collaborated a little bit with Rian Johnson on the script of Last Jedi.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man, there was a time when I was pretty into the Lawrence Kasdan movies. Like he did Silverado.
That's a great movie.
Which, oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah.
Like it's ensemble cast and young Kevin Costner and Danny Glover's in it and Scott Glenn, I think.
Yep.
Right?
And yeah, absolutely. And one of my favorite comedic actors of all time, Kevin Kline, is in it. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jeff Goldblum too?
Jeff Goldblum is in it. Brian Dennehy is in it.
So many. Good.
John Cleese is in it. Yeah. It's a hell of a film.
Right. That's right. I forgot about that. And John Cleese in that movie, like he's comedic, but he's not like Monty Python comedic, right?
No. Yeah, he's more kind of understated, more kind of droll, you might say.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I love that movie.
He also wrote the Big Chill.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He did Raiders this movie called what is the name of that movie? He did what's the name of that movie that he did with Steve Martin? And it was a serious movie. Silverado, Grand Canyon. Oh man, that movie. Oh, it's really it's a really good 90s comedy drama. And mostly drama. And Danny Glover's in that too. And Steve Martin's in it and plays like rich Hollywood eccentric guy who's having a midlife crisis. Anyway, like super good. So yeah, that was that's sort of the setup for Star Wars Story. I was gonna look up how it did in the box office, and like I can't remember what came out at that same time. Box office day
for Solo.
It was going. Yeah, for Solo. Mm-hmm.
So it has only done. I don't think it has even hit 300 million domestic yet.
Mm.
And it costs 250 million. So after 10 days, they have only barely broken even, which is not bad for, a movie in general. But for a Star Wars movie, it's got to be viewed as a major disappointment. And what I've heard is that at Lucasfilm, they're sort of rethinking their approach to Star Wars movies in a way that they're rethinking, oh man, is it really going to make sense to have a spin-off movie every year? Is that really actually going to be a good idea? And I can say I'm glad they're having that conversation. Like, if this movie gives them pause a little bit, I think that's good. I think it should give them pause.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks like. Did you say for me the thing that the website I'm looking at says the weekend gross for Star Wars Solo Story from 25th to the 28th for the 3-day weekend was 103 million. Which is not fantastic.
Yeah,
right?
Well, I'm seeing a number on IMDb right now that says the cumulative worldwide gross as of June 4th, which was 2 days ago, is 267 million. And the budget, I've heard estimates between 250 and 300 million.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
it's not doing so good.
Yeah, it's not doing so good. So, do you want to do a quick synopsis, Bill, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can do a quick synopsis. That's fine.
All right.
So, Solo: A Star Wars Story is about a young man named Han, who lives on the streets of Corellia. He's
Han.
assumed Han or Han. Well, that's actually a plot point in the movie, unnecessarily, but we can get to that later. He lives on the streets, the mean streets of Corellia, and he's kind of a criminal for hire. He works for a crime lord named Lady Proxima, who's a big, many-armed sea creature that lives in a room. She lives in like a cave-like criminal headquarters. Anyways, you get the impression that he carries out hit and runs and smash and grabs for this Lady Proxima, but he runs afoul of her because he failed to. What did he do? He kind of runs afoul of her, but he has managed to pilfer a piece of really, really expensive fuel, and he's going to make this fuel the ticket for him and his girlfriend named Kira, played by Emilia Clarke, to get off Corellia and buy a starship so that they can set off on their own. And they're trying to do this when they get separated at a security checkpoint, trying to leave the planet. He gets past the security checkpoint, but she does not. So then he makes it his goal to make money for himself, make a name for himself by joining the Imperial forces so that he can eventually come back to Corellia and get Kira. That doesn't really work out because he gets kicked out of the Navy. He has to join the infantry. And while there, he hooks up with this gang of smugglers and heistmen led by Tobias Beckett, who's played by Woody Harrelson. And he, after some convincing and after, in fact, hooking up with Chewbacca, to whom he's almost fed. So the premise seems to be that Chewbacca is a prisoner of the Imperials on this planet that they're on. And they tried to feed Han to him because Han was mutinous. But he ends up making common cause with Chewbacca, and they escape. And then he and Chewbacca join up with these gangsters, these heistmen, led by Woody Harrelson, Tobias Beckett. So then they go and they steal some stuff off a train. They steal some fuel off a train, and they're going to sell it to a criminal syndicate. But they end up losing that fuel because a rival heist gang nicks in at the last minute and screws it up. And this rival heist gang... Go ahead.
I was just going to chime in and say that the fuel's name is coaxium.
Yes, coaxium. Coaxium. Yeah. It's a tiny little pea-sized amount can power spaceships for months. So it's extremely valuable. So they end up getting nicked at the last minute by this rival heist gang. So then they're like, well, what are we going to do? In the meantime, Tobias Beckett's wife is killed, as well as their partner, this little four-armed alien guy who's voiced by the Iron Man director. What's his name? The director of Iron Man is called
Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau, not the former Obama administration speechwriter, but the other Jon Favreau. Anyway, so they end up having to go and confront the crime lord that they worked for and explain, hey, we fucked up. We didn't get this thing. The crime lord they worked for, his name is something. Anyway, he's played by Paul Bettany. And when they go to his lair, they encounter Kira, who it turns out is now working for this crime lord.
Dryden Voss.
Dryden Voss. So Kira is now working for this crime lord. And Han is like, oh my God, I'm so happy to see you. We're finally back together. But you can tell by her reaction that something's not quite right. And of course, she's now seems to be indebted to this crime lord. And so she can't just run off with Han because she's kind of, attached to Dryden Voss now. Anyway, Han is able to sort of convince Dryden Voss to give them one shot to redeem themselves and go get some coaxium from somewhere else. I'm being a little bit too long-winded with this. I'm going to try to speed it up. This is the way I teach history in college. I'm too long-winded. So they end up.
Do you when you're doing this
why
in
don't you take over? Why don't you take over? Because I'm sure you can be a little bit more succinct.
Wait, I have a question. When you're doing this in your class in history, do you like you're going point by point by point, and then you go, you know what? Too long-winded. Let's speed it up.
And I do that from time to time for sure.
That'd be funny. Okay, so yeah, Dryden Voss, they Han and Beckett and all of them, they convince Dryden Voss to let them have another shot at some more coaxium or some unrefined coaxium over on Kessel, I think.
Yeah.
Let's say it's on Kessel. But did we say that their previous gang that had done this sort of train robbery died?
Right.
Their previous gang mostly died.
Tobias's wife, and also their
Tobias's
four-armed
wife.
friend played by Jon Favreau.
Yeah. So more on that later. Anyway, they have to do this Kessel Run, which is where the Kessel Run comes from. They go and get this unrefined coaxium. Then big shootout happens. There's some Wookiees that we see there who are also enslaved. Right. The robot, who is an amazing character. Oh, yes. Wait. No, they run into Lando at some point.
Well, yeah, they have to get Lando's ship first.
Right. Yeah, so they get the ship, Millennium Falcon. Lando is tagging along with his robot, L33T?
7.
Leet, basically. That's why I couldn't tell if it was 7 or a T. Anyway, they do the Kessel Run. They get the unrefined coaxium off of the planet. Robot dies in the process. They bring it back to where they're going to have it refined. They see a whole bunch of like misery on this planet. Enfys Nest, who is this rival gang, comes in, and turns out that they're actually like rebel fighters and fighting for like a decent cause.
Yeah, they seem it's strongly implied that they're like the embryonic rebel alliance.
Right. Yeah. And I might have to tell my dog to quiet for a second. Buddy, shh. Be quiet now, bud. Oh, I heard a cat.
Yep.
And Lando takes off with the Falcon. The Enfys Nest, like we said, explains to Han that they're not pirates. And let's see. Han tries to take the coaxium to Beckett, and we sort of don't see the behind the scenes where Han has made this plan with Enfys Nest that they're going to do a double cross on Beckett,
right,
and Dryden Voss. So we think that they brought fake coaxium. It turns out they brought real coaxium, and they killed Dryden Voss. Kira. Oh, and before that, Woody Harrelson's character runs away. Kira's left there. We see a Darth Maul cameo. Kira's like implied that she's in charge. Go ahead.
Because it's revealed that first of all, there's two reveals. One, Darth Maul's not actually dead.
Yeah.
And two, Darth Maul was above Dryden Voss, and now Kira is working for Darth Maul.
Right.
Because it's strongly implied that Kira is going to Kira convinces Han that she's going to come with him, but in fact she has no intention of doing so because in fact her loyalties are still with the crime syndicate. And not necessarily because she's happy about it, but she feels that she has no choice.
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe she is
Well,
happy about it.
I have, yeah. We could talk about it in a second, but then movie ends basically with this confrontation between Beckett, um, Woody Harrelson's character, and Han. Beckett's kind of long-winded, and Han shoots him first.
Yep, Han shoots first.
Han shoots first. The Enfys Nest person gives Han a chance to join the rebellion. He declines, and then at the end of the movie, we see Han and Lando play the actual game of cards for the Falcon, where Han beats him because he has taken Lando's hidden card up his sleeve trick thing.
Yeah.
And that's the end. So, if that sounds convoluted, it is.
Yeah.
And let's just. Oh my goodness, it's so hard. Do you know how hard it is to sustain a train of thought when there is a dog whining at you?
Yeah, it really is.
Zoe.
I was playing frisbee in the backyard with Waldo before this in order to hopefully head that off at the pass.
Oh man, that's a smart move. Me?
Yeah.
Nope, no such luck. Yeah, so this was a movie, I'm going to jump in and say here, this was a movie that when I left the theater, I was like, you know what? That was way better than I thought it was going to be. Like, I left the theater thinking, man, I had like a pretty good time at that movie. Because I liked the Donald Glover plays Lando, and I really, really liked him as Lando. And I liked the way that the droid was portrayed. She's kind of like a droid liberation equality kind of character.
Mm-hmm.
She's played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yes,
and it makes me want to go check out her TV shows and stuff. That
oh man, she's got
Fleabag.
Fleabag. I watched a couple episodes of that. It's one of those movies. It's one of those shows. It's well made, but it's one of those shows where you're like, oh, all of these characters are loathsome. I don't like any of these people, you know, kind of thing. But she's good in it. I mean, she's clearly very talented. But I didn't finish that show just because I couldn't find anyone to root for, really.
Yeah. But when I left the theater, I left thinking I was enjoying it. And I think I texted you kind of shortly after that. And I was like, it wasn't that bad. And I can't remember, you grumbled something over text. It was like, and you said, I didn't like it as good as Rogue One. And I said, right. I think Rogue One wants to be taken more seriously than this movie.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So upon thinking back on it, the movie has sort of lost its luster for me. And there's some things that I really don't like about it. Alden Ehrenreich, am I saying his name correctly?
Yep. He's
pretty good as Han. I enjoyed his portrayal.
Mm-hmm.
If they had different names, I would not link the two characters together. If somebody just showed me that movie and didn't tell me it was a Star Wars movie or that's not Han Solo, I wouldn't think that was Han Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really at all.
So I'll just share my thoughts. Let me just share my thoughts on Alden Ehrenreich for a second. I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
I didn't have any problem with his portrayal because he wasn't doing so I think it was a good move to not try to do a Harrison Ford impression. Like, you can imagine someone trying to do a Harrison Ford impression and that not going so well. I thought he was just fine. Like, my problems with the movie, none of them are with Alden Ehrenreich's performance. I thought it was fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I agree with you that Lando was really good.
Yeah, I thought it was fine too. And it's funny because if we both think that Lando was good, I think Donald Glover was absolutely doing a Billy D. Williams impression.
Oh, he was, and he
Like,
pulled it off, like
yeah.
down to the speech pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
he nailed it.
Also, I think, I mean, people can have whatever opinions they want, but I also think that Donald Glover is just like that dude is super charming in and of himself, you know? And like he comedy really well. He does like he plays drama really well. Like I really liked him on Community. That show suffered when he left. His character left partway through the series.
Yeah,
and it suffered a lot because he was really good in it. He plays both comedy and dramatic on Atlanta, and is amazing. You know, and he's coming off of this like huge hit, I think, with "This Is America," that video and song that he just produced and came out with, right? Like, man, so good, so good. Not to spoil anything for anybody in Atlanta, but there's one episode of Atlanta where he plays a character that's not his usual character, and he does like a different accent, and he's got like makeup on and stuff, and it is funny and disturbing and weird and scary. Like, it's just really, really good. So it doesn't surprise me that him doing an impression of Billy D. Williams would also be like super interesting and charming, you know?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. Where do we go? Where do we go after that?
So let me share my overall thoughts on the movie real quick, and then we can get into some more details.
Sure.
I thought it was a fun movie, but my thoughts on it really haven't changed since the credits rolled. And as soon as the credits rolled, I was like, that's a B-. And I think I'm still at B-. And I think my number one problem with the movie, my number one problem with the movie is that some of the prequelness of it was just unbearably cheesy and unbearably awkward. So that was the number one thing. There were moments that I thought were just horrible, horrible screenwriting that really took me out of the movie. But the sort of more general problem that I had with the movie was exactly what I imagined it would be. As soon as they were like, there's going to be a Han Solo movie, I imagined this movie exactly. I imagined exactly this movie. In terms of the character arcs, in terms of the beats, in terms of the tone, it just didn't surprise me in any way. It seemed like it was just sort of hitting the very predictable notes. And there were certain things about it I enjoyed. Like, I thought certain things were kind of interesting. Like, I liked the sequence when Han is in the infantry and it sort of seems like World War I or something. And he has that line where he says to the commander, you know, the commander's like, we need to move south and eliminate all the hostiles. And Han goes, it's their planet, we're the hostiles. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, that's like a little commentary on the colonialist nature of the empire. So I kind of like that. But otherwise, it just seemed like an extremely predictable Han Solo origin story movie. And furthermore, the dramatic arc of the character of Han is the same arc as the original Star Wars trilogy. It's like he starts out as this guy who wants to play it all tough and be like a loner, but at the end he's compelled to actually do something for the greater good, which is exactly the same story he goes through in episode 4 and episode 5. So it's like, well, okay, I guess this character Han Solo had to learn the same story a couple different times.
Right.
So yeah, I guess, you know, even if it had been very predictable, I think I would have liked it better if it just hadn't done the really cheesy moments, the moments I really didn't like
Oh
the
man.
origin of the name Solo, his little exchange with Chewbacca. Oh, what's your name? Chewbacca. That's too long. I'm gonna have to find some other name to call you.
Though
Like,
those two moments, yeah, like
that was like screenwriting as by a 12-year-old right
oh
there. That was just
God,
really bad.
I agree. Like when it was the origin of the name Solo too. So he's trying to get off the planet. He's trying to figure out how to become a pilot so that he can get his ship, so that he can come back and get Kira. And he thinks, well, there's this. I better enlist in this army thing, and then I can become a pilot that way. And so he's about to enlist, and the guy says, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Han." He goes, "Okay, what's your last name?" or something like that. Or like, who are your people?
Yeah, he says, "I don't have a last name. Who are your people?"
He says, "I don't have any people." And the guy goes, Solo.
Yeah.
I think almost exactly like
yes, it was so bad. I was like, oh my God. Yeah, it was the Chewbacca thing was worse to me, but that was pretty bad.
Yeah. I remember when one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies came out. One of the reviews I read about it was like everything has a plot point. Like somebody's like like the monkey in the movie has a plot. Like everything's got a plot, you know.
Yeah.
And I feel it's the same way with this. It's like his name has a plot. The origin of the Millennium Falcon has a plot. The Chewie's story has a plot. Like you're right. It was just it. It's like it's like when you're a kid and you have action figures and you're trying to make up the stories and you don't understand anything about character development or like what makes interesting dialogue,
Right.
but you do understand plot. Like plot
Right.
is something a kid can grasp.
Right.
And like motivations and stuff. They know how to like make action figures say what they're thinking. Oh my goodness.
Hold on. So I have to go let my stupid dog into the backyard.
Okay, I'm gonna let my dog out also.
All right. We'll take like a 2-minute pause, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah. Wait. We gotta. Oh, there's no time. There's no time signature on this. Okay. Well, I think we're about 20 minutes in or something.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay. I'll be back in a bit.
Me too. Hang on. What's your deal? Toby dog.
Are you back? Waldo, come! Come! Waldo, come! Come on. You still there?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm back.
All right.
Where did we leave off?
Talking about bad screenwriting.
Oof. Yeah. So, yeah, that. You're right. Like that's what this movie felt like to me. But only it's interesting only in retrospect because I think I was so caught up in some of the more emotional beats of the movie. I was really happy with L337. And you know, it's some people have said like it's the first female reading droid,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in the Star Wars universe, which is really cool. And it's the first time a droid has sort of had these bigger ambitions about talking about like freeing all the other droids, which was something that happened on the planet on Kessel. There were little moments that I really identified with, like Chewie sees his family and he's trying to release his family in the midst of all this stuff.
Oh, did you think it was his family? I just thought it was other Wookiees.
I'm sorry. You're probably right. It's probably just other Wookiees. That's right. I misspoke.
But still.
Yeah, like I really liked that part. I could watch Donald Glover do that Lando Calrissian impression, which I guess we're going to. Like,
well, maybe.
Yeah. They might be making a Lando movie.
Right. It might be.
Yeah.
So, just before the movie came out, the news broke that they were now going to do a Boba Fett movie.
Oh, right.
Which I just do not. I don't know. I guess I'm in the minority in Star Wars fans, but I never gave one shit about Boba Fett. I never liked Boba Fett. I just was like, okay, he's a bounty hunter with a pretty cool uniform, but I find him utterly uninteresting. And so a movie about Boba Fett does not appeal to me, but whatever.
It doesn't appeal to me either. And like that, he's a character that needs to do exactly what he did in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. He just needs to be a guy that doesn't say much, shows up in a cool costume, and then leaves.
Yeah.
And then when they fleshed out his backstory in the prequels, like in the early 2000s prequels,
mm-hmm.
What the hell? Like that kid was annoying.
Oh, yeah.
Like the dad dad was annoying.
Yeah.
Like if they're planning to build off of that,
isn't it that like all the clone troopers are clones of Boba Fett's dad?
Yes.
Do I have that right?
I think so. I think you're correct.
Yeah, they're all
which is
so
dumb. Like it's so dumb. They could have played with when I heard that they were doing the Clone Wars movie for the prequels back when it first came out. I was thinking, ooh, this is going to be some time for like, what if they clone Darth Maul and he's like kind of messed up, you know?
Yep.
Or like,
Yep.
What if they clone some of these old Jedi Knights and then you're like, are you really you or are you the clone you?
Right.
You know? It could have been like Westworld.
That's what I always thought of as a kid. Like as a little kid, seeing Star Wars where Luke says to Obi-Wan, "You fought with my father in the Clone Wars?" I always imagined it was like, oh no, there's like the good version and the bad version of people out there, and you don't know which one's which.
Right.
That's how I always imagined it.
Right. Yeah. Like some sort of Star Wars Battlestar Galactica mix, right? Like, are you a clone or are you the real you?
Yep.
And
yep. Instead, it was like millions of Jango Fetts. It's like, oh no.
With Yoda being a little ping pong ball and a lightsaber bouncing around, leading armies. Yoda does not need to lead armies.
No.
Ugh.
No.
So anyway, yeah. Point being, I'm also uninterested.
So I think one of the major problems I see with the movie is Solo, a Star Wars story, is that, okay, like I said before, I enjoyed Han Solo in this movie. I thought it was pretty Han Solo-y. I was down with it. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed Donald Glover in this movie. He was a great Lando Calrissian. I was totally down with it. I enjoyed those two characters. Mm-hmm. Every other character in this movie was really boring except for L337.
Mm-hmm.
I felt. Kira is only plot.
Yep.
Like, describe Kira as a person. Like, you can't come up with adjectives for Kira. All you can say about her is the role she plays in the plot.
Yeah.
Right?
No, she's here's the way I would describe her. Queen of Dragons lady.
Brunette.
In space. Yeah, with brunette and in space.
Yeah, like this, I think really kind of the same goes for Woody Harrelson's character, I'm afraid. Like, he's a very, very, very cardboard cutout of like the mentor to the gunslinger type of thing. Like the movie, I suppose if the movie is perhaps most like a Western, I guess you might say, in terms of its plotting. But yeah, like the Woody Harrelson character is not very interesting. I think the Paul Bettany character is terribly boring. As a villain, he's just like, what is his character? He has some red line things on his face. Okay, what else?
That get angrier. Right.
Yeah, they get darker when he's angry, and he like has a stabby thing that he stabs people with. There's nothing else you can say about him. There's nothing. He's not he's just nothing. So the only good character was L337. The only good new character, in my view, was L337. And when you think about what happens to her, here is a droid who is committed utterly to the cause of droid liberation, droid freedom, droids being able to find their own path, droids being able to do, use their imagination to come up with what they want to do. Like, for example, she removes the restraining bolt from the one droid and she says to it, I don't know, go find your family or something. Like, she's giving freedom to droids. And she's like, she ends up trapped in the Millennium Falcon for the rest of existence. Right? She becomes basically a voiceless, shapeless thing inside the Millennium Falcon. Now, I did think it was kind of cool to think, okay, so from, the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars episode 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 has the personality of L337, and you can reread those movies in that light. I thought that was kind of clever. I kind of
I did too.
liked playing around with that in my mind.
Yeah.
But mostly the implications of this are really troubling. Like you've got this woman droid who is bent on liberation. What happens to her? Oh, we're just going to put her personality into the Millennium Falcon for the rest of existence.
and also stifle her voice completely.
Yeah, she has no voice any longer.
She has no voice anymore. No. Oh God, it's so at some point I want us to talk about broader themes and as they relate to today at some point in this convo. Convo? I just said that out loud. Conversation.
Well, one thing I thought, one thing I thought was at the beginning when you are at the like migration checkpoint on Corellia, and you see, people being separated from their families by the stormtroopers. I was like, Jesus Christ, they could not have for the timing of this in terms of current events could not have been more on the nose. I was like,
right.
Man. And I actually welled up a little bit. I was like,
I did too. And just to illuminate that a little bit more for, if we dig up this audio 3 years from now, it's because in the news, there's that big story about these children of immigrants getting lost, right?
And getting separated from their families at the border.
Yeah. Oh God.
We don't need to get too into the weeds on this, but I've actually read a few different articles about the whole thing about children getting lost. And this is pretty beside the point, but I thought it was interesting that in fact that story of the 1,500 children getting lost is actually not what we should be focusing on. So what that means is these children, when ICE, when the Immigration and Customs Enforcement made a phone call to check up on them, they were not able to reach them. But sources I trust say that no, this is actually a good thing, because what that means is these kids are not going to be able to be found by ICE so that they can be deported.
Oh, I see.
But because of the way the whole media atmosphere around Trump and everything going on with Trump is that these stories of, on the one hand, the 1,500 kids that are quote unquote lost and the children being separated from their parents at the border, these two things became conflated and they sort of turned into the same story when in fact they're very separate issues.
Okay.
Not to take too much of a detour into this.
I say we detour all we want.
Okay.
Yeah.
So absolutely, the separating kids from their parents when they're apprehended is awful. I think that's horrible. But there's a very good case to be made for the fact that, in fact, these 1,400 and so kids that got lost, in fact, that's probably actually a good thing for those kids and their families, because now they are presumably with relatives and the government doesn't know where they are to come deport them.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I thought that part was really touching. And and Chewbacca in this movie, I feel like he's the most dog-like that he has ever been in a movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And so because of that, it makes me think of my own dog. And equally, there were Chewbacca moments where I was just like, oh my God, it's not nearly as important, but it still tugged at my heartstrings, the Han meets him in the mud and, they're treating Chewbacca really poorly. And then he gets him out, and it's just, it's like going to the pound and getting your rescue dog, and he's all malnourished. And then you pick him up and there he is. He's your buddy.
Yep. The story of how the story of how Han meets Chewie, I liked it. It was good. If we're gonna get the origin story of that, I thought that was a good depiction of it. Although, what did you think of of Han actually speaking Wookiee for a second.
It was not needed. He
was
had
not needed.
never. It was not needed.
Yeah.
He never quote spoke. What is Chewbacca's Wookiee? He's never spoke Wookieean or Kashyyykian or whatever
right.
Whatever the language is.
Although,
ever in any of the other.
If Kashyyyk is a whole planet, you would imagine that there's probably hundreds of Wookiee languages. I mean, if it's like Earth, where there's hundreds of human languages,
Yeah,
who knows?
I agree, but then maybe the hand waviness of it could be that I bet once Earth gets the capability of like interacting with other life forms and we're like populating the galaxy, I bet there's going to be kind of a planet-wide language that we've all sort of been like, okay, yeah, like, but we have to speak Earthian, so this is our language.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know.
That makes sense. That makes sense. What was the phrase you used? The hand waviness of it?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, where you're just sort of like, you wave your hands and be like, in the middle of a story, you're like,
I like that.
Yeah.
I got to remember that. I got to use that.
I stole that from somewhere. It's a lot of hand waving. That's Solo, a Star Wars story. A lot of hand waving.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Yeah, that part, that sort of tugged at my heartstrings a lot. And just L337 was so good. I don't know why they didn't want to keep around Jon Favreau's character longer. Like, he has a great voice. Like, let's listen to Jon Favreau's voice more. Like, incorporate these zany characters, and if you're gonna have fun with this story, like, lean into it and have fun with it.
Tandy Newton just dies, and Tobias Beckett just gets over her death like real fast.
Yeah. And I remember one of the other podcasts I was listening to about this, somebody was saying like they were excited because it was the first Black female Star Wars character.
Yeah.
If I think. And then she dies like a third into the movie.
Yeah.
Or maybe less.
Yeah.
And she's great in Westworld. Like, she's a very good actor. You can do a lot of things with that actress. And gone.
Just
gone.
Yeah.
Just gone.
So go ahead.
No, go for it.
So there's one theory about the whole Phil Lord and Chris Miller Chris Lord and Phil Miller what getting fired thing that I think is kind of interesting. And I don't know if this is true. Like, I have no idea if this is true, and we may never know. But there are some people out there on the internet and in podcast land that are arguing that there are certain signs in this movie. There are certain vestiges of what they were trying to do, which is that they were trying to make a really broad parody of an origin story.
Okay.
So that line where Han says, "What's your name anyway?" And Chewbacca goes, and he goes, "Chewbacca, that name is too long. I'm going to have to call you something shorter." Right?
Right.
Terrible line.
Right.
But imagine that same line in a movie where the whole movie was just making fun of origin story tropes. Left and right all over the place. And I think another example of that is in that very first scene where he's talking to Lady Proxima, and he's like, "I've got a thermal detonator," and she goes, "That is a rock," and you just made a clicking sound with your mouth. It's like,
right.
Maybe the whole movie was going to be jokes like that. Maybe the whole movie was going to be just shitting all over the tropes of origin stories and just be like, "Oh, origin story, wah, 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 origin,"
right. And then that if that's the case, then the origin of Han's name also is just completely laying into and making fun of the whole origin story idea. Yeah. I like that. That would make me feel worse and better about it, I think.
Yeah, like I don't know. Maybe that would have been awful. Like maybe if the whole movie had been that way, it would have been absolutely terrible. Like maybe the right call was to fire those guys. I don't know. Or maybe it would have been hilarious and it would have been just like a crazy batshit comedy.
Well, have they made a Lego Star Wars movie yet?
Like, no, I know but there are Lego Star Wars video games, but
right.
I haven't played them.
And they've made a Lego Batman movie. They've made the Lego movie, right?
Yeah, and, that's true.
So if that was the case, if they wanted to do something like that and use those directors, a Lego Star Wars Han Solo movie in that tone would totally work.
Yeah,
because the Lego Star Wars movies are like that. They're funny and they make like winking jokes and they do it in a way that doesn't take doesn't take too much of a piss on Star Wars, you know?
Right.
But
Yeah.
just the right amount. Yeah, that would have been great. I would have watched that.
Yeah. And it sounds like, I don't know, like maybe that's why they got fired and replaced by Ron Howard. And so what you end up with is this movie that strikes a much more serious tone than that. But yet there are these little vestiges of the less serious tone. And
so weird.
In context, they don't really work. They're not very funny, but maybe they would have been funny if they'd been surrounded by other things like that. You know, it's just, it's this weird mishmash.
So I agree. I totally agree with that. Here's another metaphor I have for this movie that may or may not land. So stick with me here.
Okay.
So Bob Mould. Bob Mould was in the band Husker Du.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like a fast 80s indie like pop punk. Some people would argue that it's like the beginnings of what became like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and stuff. Like all of that began with Husker Du. That people have made that argument before,
but grimier. Husker Du is like scratchy guitars, you know.
Yeah, like punkier, but with poppy overtones and stuff. Okay, so Husker Du directly inspired the Pixies. Frank Black heard Husker Du and was like, "Oh my God, this is great! I want to make a band. I want to make a band like Husker Du," and then made the Pixies. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You with me so far? And the Pixies became this like huge, crazy good thing. Bob Mould. I think this is how the story goes. Bob Mould heard the Pixies and was like, "This band is great." After the Pixies came out, and then came out with his own band, Sugar.
Yeah,
which was like, it's like this like reflections in a mirror, creating iterations of a thing on top of itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So how does that relate to Solo?
Okay.
We get Star Wars, the original trilogy, right? With this character Han Solo that was made famous by Harrison Ford. Okay?
Yep.
Many years in the future, we get so many versions of Han Solo. One of the most recent ones being Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, yes.
And Han Solo and Peter Quill are interchangeable with one another, right?
Yes.
So you get, as a result of Star Wars and Han Solo, you get this movie Guardians of the Galaxy, where we have a similarly wisecracking main character who has like a little creature for two creatures actually, for instead of just Chewbacca, we get the non-talking one in Groot. But we also get the other more wisecracking one in Rocket Raccoon, right?
Yes.
And then in addition, on Guardians of the Galaxy, we have like this weird not father figure who's like this Southern cowboy guy.
Yes.
And I forget that guy. I forget that actor's name, but he's pretty good. He was in Walking Dead, and
Yeah,
I like that. The blue
plays
guy.
Yondu. He plays Yondu.
Yeah, Yondu. Yeah.
Michael something.
Yeah. So we get
Michael Rooker.
Yeah, he's great. I think he's great, and he's a Southern. He has this Southern accent set in a space realm, which we don't really see very much.
Space Texan, you might almost say.
Yeah. So then you can almost see like the screen. You know, whoever saw those two Guardians of the Galaxy movies and were like, "This is great. Let's make this movie called Solo."
Yeah.
And like his character is about the same age as Peter Quill. Like he's got the pseudo paternal Southern guy figure in Woody Harrelson. You know, it's just like it's a copy of a copy of a copy.
It's an echo chamber.
Yeah, it's just this echo chamber.
So that's exactly what Emily said. Like a couple days after the movie, she's like, I feel like this movie was a bad Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. It was a bad Guardians of the Galaxy, which is ironic because of exactly what you say. Guardians of the Galaxy is like based on Star Wars, and now this new Star Wars thing comes out, and it can't help but be compared to Guardians of the Galaxy, which was based on Star Wars.
Right. And the difference between my Husker Du Pixies Bob Mould Sugar reference is that all of those bands were great, really, really good. And they were all quality bands that added something to the mix and changed it up just enough to where they were just great bands. But yeah, that's what I thought about just the overall the Solo thing. But it's weird, it didn't hit me until I listened to a podcast about it, and then I started thinking about the movie, and I was like, oh yeah, that Solo thing, that was real bad. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty bad when just moments, when like little touch points in a movie make you groan about the movie in retrospect, when they overshadow the good parts of the movie.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I honestly, I kind of feel like I already liked Rogue One, but my appreciation of Rogue One actually increased.
Yeah.
Because, and I think the wise thing about Rogue One is, except for like one or two notable exceptions, and exceptions that ultimately don't impact the film very much, it's all new characters. And so yes, it's a prequel, but it doesn't suffer from like prequelitis, right? It doesn't find itself getting trapped in all of these very on the nose little, oh, this is where that thing came from kind of moments.
Did you, when you heard somebody, when you heard this whole Kathleen Kennedy takes over and is like releasing all these new movies, and we're going to have these offshoot Star Wars universe movies, did you think that they were all going to be so closely related to this Skywalker storyline?
Honestly, yes. And honestly, at the time, I didn't think it was a problem, but now I think it's a problem.
I don't know why. I just thought like, oh, now we can talk about things that have nothing to do with the Death Star. And nothing to like. I just sort of picture, oh, we already have the aesthetics. We know a little bit about like the Empire or whatever. Oh, okay, we'll just go to some random place and see like, here's another space drama set on Alderaan before it blows up or something. Like just something completely like that. That's sort of what I thought in my head that these were going to be like. I don't know why, because that wouldn't really. I think some esoteric You know, like some esoteric offshoot, and people would be going, "Whoa!" People would be going,
"Waldo, hush."
People would be going, "Why is this called a Star Wars movie?"
Yeah.
Oh, because the blasters are the same.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
I mean, theoretically,
yeah.
that's what Rian Johnson is working on, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like the guy who directed Last Jedi,
Directed.
the director of The Last Jedi is supposedly working on a new trilogy of movies that is going to be entirely new. Like, it's going to be in the Star Wars universe, but it's not going to be the Skywalker story.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
That sounds good to me. That sounds good to me. But the Boba Fett movie does not sound good to me. The Obi-Wan Kenobi movie does not sound good to me. Like, I don't want those. I don't want them.
No, we've had enough. We've had enough of that. Like, we're good to go. We are good to go on the previous movies. We have had enough prequels. I don't think we need them. The story has been illuminated.
Absolutely. I mean, very excited. I'm very excited about episode 9 because I have no idea what's going to be in episode 9. Like, Force Awakens very much like you can, set up what sort of had to be in the next movie of episode 8, but now I have no freaking clue what's going to be in episode 9. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, some people have said like you can end you could see The Last Jedi as being the end of a little series. Like,
you could,
if they didn't make the next movie, that would be an end point. Boom.
Yep, I agree. That's true.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Oh, there was one more point that I had in my head. Oh, the Darth Maul reveal that you talked about. Something I heard on, it was probably a Slate podcast, but they said that Darth Maul reveal is only a big reveal that he wasn't dead if you haven't watched the Clone Wars cartoon and the Rebels cartoon.
Right.
Because he's apparently like still kicking around in those things. So they've already revealed that.
How many people though that went to see Solo, a Star Wars story, gonna be like, what the fuck is going on here? Like, because so when on it, so here's what I thought was going to happen. Kira, makes the video call. I thought it was going to be Snoke. I thought it was going to be, long ago, before Snoke became this guy who ran the First Order, he was in the criminal underworld, and that would make sense when you connect it to how in The Last Jedi there's that plot point with Benicio del Toro, where it's like, the arms manufacturers are selling to both sides, right? So I thought that if it turned out that back in the day, Snoke was this like criminal mastermind in the underworld and then you could sort of extrapolate out from there that, no, it wasn't Snoke, it was Darth Maul. And so then I had to be like, wait a minute, when is this movie I'm watching right now taking place?
Yeah.
And then I was doing the math in my head. I was like, no, this cannot be before episode 1. That makes no sense. This cannot be before episode 1. And so honestly, for like a couple minutes after that reveal, I wasn't paying attention to the movie. I was trying to think like, wait a minute, when is this movie taking place?
Yeah, I was doing the exact same thing. Honestly, I was doing the exact same thing. And then I had to, they didn't, here's another point. They didn't focus in on his mechanical legs enough.
Yes.
Like you had to read into it. I read an article that was talking about this movie where they were saying that the projection itself in many of these movies is not doing the cinematography justice.
Yes,
because that. So like that first part looked all dark and I couldn't tell what people's faces were supposed to look like. So some of that problem could be attributed just back to the bad theaters,
could be.
Like not allowing the directors to do what they want to do. But I totally agree with you on that point.
Yeah. And then, I guess after a couple minutes went by, I did kind of vaguely remember seeing on the internet that, oh yeah, in the cartoon series that they're showing, Darth Maul is still alive. So then I was sort of reconciled to it, but it still threw me for a loop. You know?
I didn't know. I didn't know that he was
Yeah.
still alive in the cartoon. It was a pretty good reveal once I put that together. Oh yeah, his legs, and he got chopped in half and stuff.
Yeah.
Would you? Would you see it again?
I would see it again when it comes on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm about the same. Although I really like that Lando performance, and I really like L337.
Yep.
So I might get it. Have you purchased Rogue One and Last Jedi?
Yes.
I haven't bought either one.
Yeah, I purchased both of those. Emily and I just watched The Force Awakens the other night, and I think once we have a busy time, she's out of town now this week, and I'm out of town next week, but we'll probably rewatch Last Jedi coming up. You know,
Yeah.
I remember when we gave our thoughts on The Last Jedi, I was like, oh, this is my favorite Star Wars movie now. I still really like Last Jedi. I'm definitely in the pro Last Jedi camp. But
Solo is your favorite Star Wars movie?
No, but man, The Force Awakens is so good.
It's really
good.
It's
good. So good.
The pacing on it is awesome.
Did you see on Twitter Scott Aukerman? You know, from Comedy Bang Bang?
Yeah.
The day Solo came out, he tweeted Star Wars movies, and then he numbered them. How many Star Wars movies have there been? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He numbered them 1 to 10. But all he did was he just numbered them in the order that they came out into theaters. That's all he did. But it wasn't. But like a lot of people just like didn't get that's what he was doing. Like he was fucking with people. He was like, I'm gonna make people think that this is my ranking of the Star Wars movies, but all I'm actually doing is just putting them in the order they came out.
Right.
So then if you look at the replies to that, it's just people just going absolutely ape shit. They're just losing their fucking minds.
Because he ranks The Last Jedi as last.
Yeah, he ranks Last Jedi as last. He ranks the prequels ahead of, episode 8 and episode 7 and 8 and Rogue One. Like people are just fucking losing their minds. It's hilarious.
It's so good.
People are so obtuse.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how much I can derail this movie, reviewing movies, and Star Wars in general. Let's see how much I can do that right now with what I'm about to bring up.
All right.
So what I just said is, let's see if I can derail the entire concept of having a podcast about reviewing movies at all.
Oh man, this is
Star Wars in general. This movie, just maybe this conversation itself, buying all of this stuff, all of it.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm listening to this book by Chris Hedges. And it's a book that he wrote. Chris Hedges is a very lefty, left writer guy. And he wrote this book called Death of the Liberal Class in 2018 or 2010. I'm listening to it now, and oh my God, man, like the predictions that he makes he's like, I'm not sure if he was quoting somebody in the book. I'd have to go back and like re-listen to it or buy the book and like flip back to the page where he talks about it. But he's like, we are in serious trouble if a populist who is the least bit charismatic comes along to fill this void that the liberal class has left. We are in very serious trouble.
Oh shit!
and one of the arguments that he makes is that like Hollywood sort of, I'm paraphrasing a lot here. Okay, so this is my rendition of this is sort of my thoughts mixed with his thoughts. But like Hollywood and movies encompass what we call liberals now, but really all that this stuff is doing is like giving us these little nuggets to talk about and think about. And meanwhile, you know, we'll maybe have that feeling like, oh, this relates, this slave, you know, this like slave scene with the Wookiees relates to what I'm experiencing, you know, like it relates to the atrocities that are happening in real life. And then we talk about the entertainment value of it, and then just kind of then it keeps us busy, and we think that, you know, like we'll go on to Twitter and talk about this stuff, or we'll like respond to what Trump is talking about on Twitter, because it gives us the illusion of doing something with social value.
Yes. This dovetails really well with something.
All right.
So the movie Get Out, which I loved and you thought was pretty good.
I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
There was a podcast. I'll send you the episode. Okay. There's this podcast called Stockton to Malone, which I think is a podcast that doesn't really exist anymore. But it's these two guys, both of whom are guys who have written for Jacobin magazine. Mm-hmm. So it's a socialist left-wing publication. It's this guy Micah Utrecht and R.L. Stevens, and they recorded a podcast where they talked about the movie Get Out and their takes on it. And that's what you just said is exactly one of the points that R.L. Stevens brings up in this review, which I think is really interesting, which is that like the left in America has been out of power for so long that it's grasping at straws. And therefore, like having hot takes about pop culture is like the one thing that leftists can do that make them feel like they have some power.
Oh God,
right?
that's so
it's like the left is so out of power, really, that it has to sort of assuage itself by having hot takes about cultural things. Well, and it tries to convince itself that if I write a really good think piece about the most recent episode of Girls, I am doing politics, right? You know, it's like,
oh God,
and I've been guilty of this myself. I've been guilty of that line of thinking myself, like, oh, I see what this episode of Westworld is doing. I'm going to write a think piece about it, and then blah, 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 blah. It's like, oh, the only reason you're pouring so much energy into this is because you are so far from the actual levers of power that this is all you can do.
Yeah. It's like super sobering and disturbing to think about that way. But there's an element of like I used to be a fundamentalist Christian, right? Mm-hmm. And there's an element to that line of thinking that I need to be aware of, which is like there was at one point when I was in church and somebody said, like, if you're not praying or reading the Bible, then what you're doing is fruitless. And this could be a version of that, right? like we are still allowed to enjoy things. We are still allowed to enjoy art, right? Like, but maybe not. It like put things in perspective. Like if we're trying to elicit social change and stuff, this is fine and this is fun, you know, like this is fun to talk about, but this is not our social change moment, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I should clarify that on that podcast, R.L. Stevens and Mike Utrecht, that was their preface to actually like, they said it kind of tongue in cheek. All of that aside, we're going to give our thoughts on, you know, this piece of culture.
That's what we're doing here.
So let me try to paraphrase. So Micah Utrecht's sort of like tongue-in-cheek take on the movie Get Out was he's like, I don't know, lots of you are saying that you saw a movie about, you know, race in America, but what I saw was a movie about the importance of strong public sector unions. Let me explain. Because at the end of the movie, the hero is the guy from the TSA. He knew that he could take that TSA vehicle away from work, and his union rep would represent him if he got
I like it. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is our how do we twist Solo to have that sort of say pro social commentary? Is that possible?
It doesn't have as much. Like, there is that one part where I thought it was kind of interesting, where it's a comment about the Empire as colonialism, where it's like, all right, we're in combat and we have to go eliminate the hostiles, and Han goes, well, it's their planet, so we're the hostiles. So that was pretty good.
Yeah.
There's the separating people from their families. So there's little like allusions.
There's sort of the anti-war element too, where you think that this enemy that you're fighting in Enfys Nest is the bad guy, but actually, it's like they are the ones that are standing up to the oppression, and here we are with our Westernist take on things, and so there's that part of it too. It just bugs me when I see stuff like that, and I think that they put it in there to pander to people like us.
Yeah, maybe. It might have been. Might have been.
I don't know. Yeah. All right. Well,
all right, man.
I think that's good.
I think it's a good discussion.
You said B-. I think I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sitting at B.
Okay.
Maybe just a B, because I really liked the the Chewy dog aspect.
Yeah. I guess it's worth saying, technically, the movie's great. Like, I think it looks really good.
Yeah.
I don't think the theater I was in was one of the ones with projection problems.
Okay.
I thought it looked really good. I thought like some of the special effects were kind of amazing. Like, there's this part where they lose when they're on the snowy planet, and the fuel that they have failed to rob blows up, and it blows up in a really interesting way. Like, it was a really cool explosion.
Yeah. I think the one bit of prequelitis that was worthwhile was they resolved the damn 12 parsecs. Like, how do you do the Kessel Run in a less amount of space?
Yeah.
Like, parsecs is not time, it's distance.
Yeah.
And they resolved that in a pretty sweet way, I thought. Like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
He takes a shortcut past this, what I thought was a really cool, like, Cthulhu monster in space, and it gets its like flesh ripped off of it into a black hole, and it's trying to grab at the Millennium Falcon. Man, I was on board for all of that.
I wasn't really, just because I knew I knew that they were going to get away. Like, I knew that there was a lot of stakes.
No, I knew that they were going to get away too. I just really liked that specific imagery.
Yeah.
Like some sort of crazy ass slumbering god Cthulhu monster that lives next to this insane black hole. Like, I just thought it looked really.
I thought so if I had been the screenwriter, I would have never had them say 12 parsecs. I would have said 14, so that when you get to Star Wars: A New Hope, we can see how the 12 parsecs means that the number is like slowly creeping down over the years. With the years exaggerating.
Yeah. How big was the fish? In the movie, it's it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, man. It's interesting, the movie that might have been, because apparently the character of Dryden Voss. Are you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah.
The character of Dryden Voss was originally going to be played by Michael K. Williams.
Yeah. He
and
played
it was going to be
Omar on The Wire, right?
Yeah, and it was going to be a CGI character.
Right. Yeah.
And there wasn't time to do that with the firing the directors and changing everything up.
Oh man, that would have added. Even if you just would have gotten Michael K. Williams in to play that bad guy,
I agree.
Oh, man, he's such a good actor. I
Great.
really like him.
Yeah. All right, man. Well,
all right. Well, that about covers it. So, go placate. We'll go placate ourselves with our media and pretend that things are getting better.
Exactly. And, yeah. The world is a shit show, but God damn it, we shared some interesting opinions.
Look, we had some opinions. We had a little think piece. Yeah. And you did change the name of the podcast to The Little Think Piece.
The Little Think Piece. All right.
All right, man.
Well, we'll talk at you soon.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Bye.